There has been tension between the UK and Russia since the beginning of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Tensions escalated after Nick Carter, the former chief of the General Staff of the United Kingdom, said that Russia has become a major threat to Eastern Europe and that it should be ready for war. The fact that the European states and the United States are also involved makes war more and more likely. But if war breaks out between Britain and Russia, which side will win? Let's find out together. The greatest military power. The biggest factor in war is military power. Although Russia is the world's second military power, America is the first. In other words, in a possible war, the armies of America and Britain should be counted as one. Of course, there is also the NATO military power. Russia, 3 million soldiers, 12,950 tanks, 1 aircraft carrier, 4,163 fighter jets and helicopters, 27,037 armored military vehicles, 16 warships, 3,860 rocket launcher vehicles, and it has 62 submarines. United Kingdom, 275,000 soldiers, 733 aircraft, drones, and helicopters, 133 fighter jets, 227 battle tanks, and 88% naval power. United States, 2,260,000 soldiers, 13,264 aircraft, UAVs, and helicopters, 2,855 fighter jets, 6,289 battle tanks, and 490 naval forces. But the most important thing is that there are 15 NATO member states. So if NATO forces are involved, Russia will be involved in a war it cannot win. Even if we take into account that Iran and China will side with Russia, they alone cannot match the strength of NATO forces. Of course, we do not take nuclear power into account in a possible war scenario, because Russia and many NATO member states have nuclear weapons. If these weapons are used, many countries in the world will be negatively affected. Nobody wants that to happen. Trade is involved. On the other hand, some of the European countries that are NATO members seem to be dependent on Russia for their energy supply. Even though European countries have diversified their energy sources, many of them are still dependent on Russian natural gas. This includes France and Germany in particular. In the event of a war, the countries that Russia imports and exports to would either remain neutral or their trade agreements would be terminated. China, which is on Russia's side, should not be underestimated. It has a large population, a strong army, and most importantly, it is a chip production center. Due to the chip crisis between the US and China, the production of many electronic products around the world has come to a standstill. Weapons scenarios in a possible UK-Russia war. If Russia invades England, it will win easily, because Russia's naval power is quite sufficient and superior. Britain, on the other hand, is behind Russia in terms of naval task force. But if NATO forces are involved in the war, Russia has no chance of winning. In the second scenario, Britain and Russia face each other in a land operation. Britain wins the land battle, because Britain's ground troops are trained professionals. The inadequacy of Russia's ground troops was revealed by the losses they suffered when they attacked Ukraine. In the third scenario, Britain and Russia engage in an air battle. The Russian jets would fail miserably. The reason is that in the war between Russia and Ukraine, 25 Su-34 and 6 Su-35 jets of Russia were shot down by Ukrainian fighter jets for 2 years. Since February 2022, Russia has lost 95 jets. In a possible air battle with the UK with its 130 Eurofighter Typhoons and 30 Lockheed Martin F-35B Lightning-type aircraft would destroy Russian jets. In the fourth scenario, the question is whether Britain or Russia would win the tank battle. In fact, the answer to this question is very easy, because Russia lost 2,600 main battle tanks and 4,900 other armored vehicles in the war with Ukraine. Many of the tanks and armored vehicles were destroyed by drones and unmanned aerial vehicles. The Ukrainian army's anti-tank missiles also worked quite well. On the other hand, in March 2023, Russian forces destroyed 2 Challenger 2 main battle tanks sent by the UK to Ukraine. Challenger 2 main battle tanks had the latest technology and advanced features. Ultimately, in a possible tank battle between Britain and Russia, strategy would determine the outcome. Even if Britain's tanks are advanced, it is highly likely that they will be destroyed after a wrong strategy. The fifth scenario is the question of which side would win in a naval battle between Russia and Britain. The Russian Navy has effective warships and submarines. However, the UK has more modern and advanced naval vessels. HMS Queen Elizabeth is one of the most advanced naval air defense platforms in the UK. With the Type 45, HMS Dragon and the 5th-generation attack aircraft F-35B Lightning on the platform, it would make a big difference in the war. Already, Russia is barely hitting Ukrainian targets against the Royal Navy in its backyard. If NATO forces were involved in a possible naval war, it would be a massacre for Russia. Of course, in this scenario, there are also fighters roaming the depths of the sea. In terms of submarines, the SSN-20, with more than 20 torpedoes and 40 Tomahawk Block 4 cruise missiles, would be a serious competitor to Russian submarines. The SSN-20 is also extremely quiet and has advanced radar technology. In a possible naval war, the one that goes unnoticed in the depths of the sea wins. Submarines in the British Navy seem to have an advantage in this regard. Most of the ships and submarines in the Russian Navy inventory date back to the Soviet Union. Although they have been modernized, their technology is still outdated and dates back 30 years. Even if the warships and submarines in the Russian Navy were advanced and state-of-the-art, they would be helpless against NATO's naval power. Slow. The last trump nuclear power. Britain and Russia are at war, and Britain has an overwhelming advantage. She's about to win the war. Russia is about to play its last trump card. Because it has nothing left to lose, it will unleash the most terrible weapon in history. The Tsar Bomb. The Tsar Bomb, first tested in 1961, is a destructive Soviet-era weapon with a power of 50 megatons. That's 3,633 times more effective than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Imagine if Russia had dropped such a bomb on London, the heart of England. In that case, Britain would definitely lose the war. But of course, Britain also has nuclear bombs. If Russia had done such a madness, even if Britain had lost the war, America would have stepped in. America would retaliate with atomic bombs and completely destroy Russia. Looking at the scenarios listed above, Russia loses the war in every scenario. Because England is not the only country it will fight. If you want more of this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press the like button, and follow our channel.